All right, so we've identified a couple of problems. The first of which is that at frame 100, the background is going to stop moving down. So let's see if we can't take a look at that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the keyframes, and I'm just going to go push S on my keyboard and scale things up. Oop. Hold on a second. Let's move to frame 0. Let's try that again. S, scale, and what's happening there was it was scaling from what it perceives as the nearest where my point of origin is. So in this case, by selecting the first frame, it's reading that as the point of origin, so that when I scaled, it's scaled this way rather than doing it in both directions or the opposite direction. So now that that's accomplished, let's go ahead and push play again and see what happens. So we can see now that it is extended beyond the 100 and is moving all the way through. However, it's a lot slower. And that's because the value stayed the same, so we should maybe see about changing that. So actually what I think I'm going to do, and we'll try a couple of different things. First of all, I think I'm going to delete this middle keyframe. And we'll put a link below, but in the video where I had created this initial animation and inserted these keyframes, I think I put that one in to represent sort of like an inward fluctuation of the water, where it would kind of fluctuate in slightly towards the middle and then back out. And the reality is, I'm not sure that I need that. That was just going for too much subtlety. So I'm just going to delete that altogether, and we'll see where we get from there. So first things first, I'm going to switch to my shading view, where I can change the values. And let's widen this out, and we will set this from outliner to the timeline. And that way I can play this and see what happens when I make changes. So making sure I'm in frame 1, I'm going to go here and I'm going to set this value back at 0. And for good measure, I'm going to push I to insert and push enter a couple more times. And we'll go ahead and push play, and I don't expect anything to have necessarily changed, because basically I just put this at a value that it was similar to anyway. So let's jump to the end and go to frame 700. And I'm going to change this value. And let's just say 700. I'll hit I'll hit enter. I will hit I, and you'll notice that the color changed to orange, showing that there was a change. And let's go ahead and we'll push play and see what happens. Okay. So, there we go. It's moving at a much more consistent rate, more in line with what I had previously, and that's all there is to it. So that's simple enough. We'll notice that this is moving at a much quicker pace, which is great. And the one thing I would note is just it's very important that you hit the I to insert after you key the value in, because otherwise sometimes the values don't take. And you'll go back later on and go, well, how come this value didn't change? And that's why. Now the other thing I need to point out is look at how it's moving much faster now. And it's starting to slow down. Well, that's because there's some curves that are happening that are inherent in the motion when you do animations in Blender. So maybe we should take a look at changing that. I'm going to switch this from the outliner to the timeline, so that the timeline is up here. We'll scroll, hit the middle mouse wheel to get its size so that it fits within the confines of the window. I'm going to come down here and let's switch this to the graph editor. And in the graph editor, let's try a couple of things. First of all, let's change the active keyframe from Bezier to linear. And then let me just zoom in on these handles a little bit and see if I can't. Basically what's happening is this animation starts out like this, kind of slowly, and then once it gets going, it goes at a fairly constant rate, and then as it approaches the end, the rate that the animation is going at slows down. So let's see if we can just have an effect on that. Let's just go up here to the timeline, push play, let it recalculate, and see what we get. And we can see now that the background is moving at a faster, steadier rate and looks much better. I still have the other issues, and in fact, it looks like the bag has actually gotten a little bit worse, so I'll have to revisit that and a couple of other issues that I'll have to deal with as well. But we'll do that in subsequent videos.